Here's something that's going to change everything you thought you knew about dating. That maybe she just gave you. That I'll let you know. That we'll see. It's not confusion. It's not her being polite. And it's definitely not her playing hard to get in the way you've been told. It's a test. A biological screening mechanism that's been refined over hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution. And right now, most men are failing it without even knowing they're being tested. I'm going to show you exactly what's happening beneath the surface of these non-committal responses. We're going to decode the neuroscience, the evolutionary psychology, and the hidden communication patterns that women use instinctively, often without conscious awareness themselves. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about tricks. This is about understanding a language you were never taught to speak. A language that operates below words, below conscious thought, in the realm of biology, instinct, and primal screening. By the end of this, you'll never hear maybe the same way again. Let's begin. The problem. What men miss. Here's the fundamental problem. Men communicate to exchange information. We say what we mean. We mean what we say. When we say maybe, we typically mean we're genuinely uncertain and need more data to make a decision. Women don't communicate this way, not because they're deceptive, but because female communication evolved to serve entirely different purposes. Safety assessment, social navigation, mate selection, resource protection. When a woman says maybe to a romantic or sexual proposition, she is rarely expressing genuine uncertainty. She's running a complex evaluation algorithm that's processing dozens of variables simultaneously. Variables you can't see. Variables she may not even be consciously aware of. Let me give you the science. Research from the Department of Psychology at UCLA demonstrated that women's brains show significantly higher activation in the anterior cingulate cortex, the region responsible for emotional evaluation and risk assessment, when processing potential romantic partners. This activation happens before any conscious decision is made. What does this mean practically? It means that when she says maybe, her brain has already begun making calculations. She's not waiting for more information from you. She's waiting to see how you respond to the ambiguity. She's testing your response to uncertainty. And here's where most men fail catastrophically. They hear maybe and they do one of two things. Option 1, they accept the uncertainty at face value. They wait patiently. They give her space. They check in periodically to see if she's made up her mind. They become what I call maybe waiting, suspended in limbo, giving away their power, demonstrating through their behavior that they have nothing better to do than await her decision. Option 2, they push harder. They try to convince her. They present logical arguments for why she should say yes. They increase pressure, increase attention, increase investment, all while she's actively measuring whether pressure makes them desperate or patient. Both responses fail. Both demonstrate a fundamental misunderstanding of what maybe actually means in the female communication lexicon. Let me tell you what maybe really is. Maybe is a screening tool. It's a filter designed to separate men who understand social and sexual dynamics from men who don't. It's an opportunity for her to observe your behavior under ambiguous conditions, which reveals far more about your character, your options, and your value than any direct interaction ever could. Think about this from an evolutionary perspective. For hundreds of thousands of years, a woman's survival and the survival of her offspring depended on her ability to accurately assess male quality before commitment. A wrong choice could mean death, could mean abandonment during pregnancy, could mean insufficient resources for her children. She couldn't rely on what men said. Words are cheap. Words can be manufactured. She had to rely on behavioral signals, on how men responded to challenges, on how men handled uncertainty, on whether men had options or were desperately clinging to any opportunity. Maybe creates the perfect laboratory for these assessments. When you encounter non-committal responses and you wait anxiously, you signal low options. You signal that this opportunity is precious because opportunities are rare for you. You signal that you're willing to tolerate ambiguity because you can't generate alternatives. When you encounter non-committal responses and you push aggressively, you signal poor social calibration. You signal that you don't understand the dance. You signal potential danger, because a man who can't handle romantic rejection gracefully might not handle other rejections gracefully either. Both signals are disqualifying. The men who pass this test, and they are a small percentage, are the ones who understand what's actually being communicated and respond accordingly. We'll get to exactly how to respond. But first, you need to understand the pattern recognition system. The pattern recognition system. Here's what separates men who succeed consistently from men who stumble through dating confused and frustrated. Pattern recognition. The ability to read clusters of signals rather than individual words. Let me explain. When a woman gives you a maybe, that word alone contains almost no useful information. It could mean dozens of things depending on context. Trying to interpret maybe in isolation is like trying to understand a language by looking at one letter. But maybe never occurs in isolation. It always comes packaged with other signals: vocal tonality, body language, timing, eye contact patterns, physical proximity, response latency, and what I call effort asymmetry. Let me break these down. Signal cluster. 1. The interested maybe. This is the maybe that actually means yes, but I need you to demonstrate just a little more value first. What does this look like? The words say maybe, or I'm not sure, or let me think about it. But watch the body. She's maintaining eye contact slightly longer than necessary. She's orienting her body toward you rather than away. She's finding excuses to extend the conversation rather than ending it. She's laughing at things that aren't particularly funny. Her vocal tonality rises slightly, a sign of arousal and engagement. Most importantly, her response latency is short. She responds quickly to your messages. She doesn't leave you waiting for hours. When you suggest plans, she might not immediately agree, but she engages with the logistics. She offers alternative times if the first doesn't work. This is the maybe of the screening test. She's attracted. She's interested. But she needs to see just a bit more from you before she commits. The mistake men make here is becoming more invested in response to the ambiguity. They text more. They suggest more elaborate plans. They try to demonstrate value through increased attention. This backfires because it violates a core principle of attraction dynamics: investment asymmetry. When you become significantly more invested than she is, you flip the power dynamic. You become the pursuer rather than the prize. And the moment you become the pursuer, you've already lost. The correct response to the interested maybe is subtle disengagement combined with continued presence. You don't disappear, but you don't chase. You match her investment level precisely, or go slightly below it. You create space for her to step forward. Signal cluster 2. The polite rejection maybe. This is the maybe that means no, but I'm not comfortable saying no directly. Why wouldn't she just say no? Because for women, direct rejection carries social and sometimes physical risk. Research published in the Journal of Social Psychology demonstrated that women who reject men directly experience significantly higher rates of aggressive responses than women who reject indirectly. She's not being deceptive. She's protecting herself. What does this look like? The words are similar. Maybe. I'll let you know. We'll see. But the signal cluster is completely different. Her body orients away from you. Her eye contact is brief and avoidant. Her responses are short, low effort, and delayed. When you suggest plans, she doesn't engage with logistics. She remains vague. She doesn't offer alternatives. She doesn't ask follow-up questions. There's a particular pattern I call the fade gradient. Her responses get progressively shorter and slower over time. First response, fairly quick, moderate length. Second, slower, shorter. Third, much slower, 1 or 2 words. She's gradually withdrawing investment, hoping you'll take the hint without requiring explicit rejection. The mistake men make here is ignoring the signal cluster and focusing only on the words. They hear maybe and think there's still a chance. They persist. They keep texting. They keep suggesting plans. They interpret the slow responses as she's busy rather than she's uninterested. This persistence does not create attraction. It creates discomfort, and it marks you as socially uncalibrated, a man who cannot read obvious signals. The correct response to the polite rejection. Maybe is immediate, graceful withdrawal, not dramatic, not bitter. Just a clean exit that demonstrates you understood the communication and you're moving on without difficulty. Why is this important even when there's no future with this woman? Because social circles overlap. Women talk. Your reputation is shaped not just by how you handle success, but by how you handle rejection. The man who accepts indirect rejection gracefully is marked as safe, high caliber, and socially intelligent. The man who pushes past obvious signals is marked as dangerous, desperate, and low value. Signal cluster 3. The strategic maybe. This is the most misunderstood category. The maybe that means I'm genuinely uncertain and I'm deliberately creating time to assess you further. This comes from women who are experienced in dating dynamics, women who have learned that their own initial attraction isn't always reliable, women who want to observe you in multiple contexts before making a decision. What does this look like? Mixed signals, genuine inconsistency, moments of high engagement followed by withdrawal. She seems interested, then distant, then interested again. She's not playing games, she's actively processing. This is actually the most honest form of maybe. She doesn't know yet. She's gathering data. The signal cluster here is characterized by what I call testing behaviors. She'll create small obstacles to see how you respond. She'll take longer to reply occasionally, then watch whether you become anxious. She'll mention other men to gauge your reaction. She'll cancel plans once to see if you handle it gracefully. These aren't manipulations, they're assessment tools. The mistake men make here is becoming reactive. They pass one test, then fail the next. Their behavior becomes inconsistent because they're responding to her moment-to-moment signals rather than maintaining their own frame. The correct response to the strategic maybe is consistency. You maintain the same demeanor whether she's giving you attention or withdrawing it. You demonstrate that your emotional state is not dependent on her behavior. You show that you have a center of gravity that doesn't shift with her moods. This is what she's testing for. A man whose frame is stable. A man who doesn't crumble under uncertainty. A man who remains valuable regardless of whether any individual woman validates him. Before we continue to part 2, where I'll reveal the neurobiological mechanisms behind these patterns and the specific tactical responses that work, I need you to do something. Hit subscribe. Right now. This information changes how you move through the dating world, but only if you actually internalize it. Only if you study it. Only if you watch it multiple times until it becomes unconscious pattern recognition. Most men will watch this once, think, that's interesting, and go back to making the same mistakes. They'll keep waiting for maybes that mean no. They'll keep pushing past rejection. They'll keep wondering why dating feels like a guessing game they can't win. Don't be that man. Subscribe, engage. The game changes when you understand the rules. The neurobiology of female decision-making. Welcome back. In part 1, we decoded the 3 types of maybe and the signal clusters that distinguish them. Now we're going deeper, into the biology, into the neurochemistry, into the primal operating system that drives these behaviors. Because here's what you need to understand. Women don't consciously decide to give non-committal responses. These patterns are hardwired. They emerge from neural architecture that was shaped by millennia of survival pressure. When you understand the biology, you stop taking it personally. You stop getting frustrated. You start seeing the matrix for what it is. Let's talk about the female nervous system in mate selection. Research from evolutionary psychologist David Buss and others has demonstrated that women's attraction responses are mediated primarily by the limbic system, the emotional brain, rather than the prefrontal cortex, the rational brain. This isn't a stereotype, it's measurable neuroscience. fMRI studies show that when women evaluate potential partners, the amygdala, threat detection, the hypothalamus, hormonal response, and the anterior cingulate cortex, emotional processing, activate before any rational evaluation occurs. What does this mean for you? It means her maybe is not a logical evaluation that you can influence with logical arguments. It's an emotional, instinctive response that you can only influence through behavioral signals that speak to the limbic system. Let me give you a specific example. When a woman encounters a man, her nervous system immediately begins processing threat level and resource potential. These two evaluations happen simultaneously and unconsciously. Threat level. Is this man dangerous? Will he respond to rejection with aggression? Does he have the social calibration to accept boundaries? Can she safely spend time alone with him? Resource potential. Does this man have the genetics, the status, the capability to provide for offspring? Is he selected by other women? Does he have options? Maybe is often a stalling mechanism while the nervous system continues gathering data on these two dimensions. Here's where it gets interesting. The same behaviors that reduce threat perception often increase resource perception, up to a point. A man who remains calm under uncertainty appears both safe and high value. A man who doesn't push past boundaries appears both respectful and unneedy. But there's a threshold. Too much passivity, and the threat perception drops to zero. But so does the resource perception. She feels safe, but she's not attracted. You've become a nice guy who's no danger, but also no excitement. The biological sweet spot is what researchers call controlled unpredictability. You're safe enough that her threat detection doesn't activate, but you're unpredictable enough that her dopamine system remains engaged. Let me explain the dopamine component. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. That's a common misconception. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It spikes not when we receive a reward, but when we anticipate receiving a reward that isn't certain. This is why gambling is addictive. This is why variable reward schedules create stronger behavioral attachment than fixed schedules. This is why the early stages of attraction feel like madness, because dopamine is flooding the brain in response to uncertainty. When a woman is attracted and uncertain about you, her dopamine system is engaged. She's thinking about you, analyzing your behavior, wondering what you'll do next. This is desirable when she's certain of you. When your behavior is completely predictable, when your interest level is obvious, when you've demonstrated that you'll wait forever for her maybe to become a yes, the dopamine system disengages, the anticipation dies, and attraction fades. This is counterintuitive for men because male attraction doesn't work this way. Male attraction is primarily visual and immediate. Certainty typically increases male attraction rather than decreasing it. But female attraction is process-based. It builds through uncertainty, observation, and emotional oscillation. It requires engagement of the dopamine system over time. Maybe is actually her dopamine system doing exactly what it's supposed to do, remaining engaged while gathering more data. The question is, are you feeding that system correctly, or are you shutting it down? The hormonal cycle factor. Now let me add another layer of complexity that most men never consider. Women's neurochemistry fluctuates significantly across the menstrual cycle, and these fluctuations directly influence attraction patterns and decision-making. Research published in Hormones and Behavior demonstrated that during the follicular phase, approaching ovulation, women show significantly increased attraction to markers of genetic fitness, masculine features, dominance, risk-taking behavior. During the luteal phase, after ovulation, women show increased attraction to markers of resource provision, stability, kindness, commitment signals. What does this mean practically? It means that a maybe, given during one phase of her cycle, might become a yes during another phase, or a no. Her evaluation criteria literally change based on hormonal fluctuations. This isn't an excuse to keep pursuing women who've indicated disinterest, but it explains why initial attraction can seem inconsistent, why she might seem intensely interested one week and lukewarm the next, why mixed signals aren't always manipulation. Sometimes they're genuine biological variation. The men who succeed long-term are the ones who can appeal to both sets of criteria, who demonstrate both genetic fitness and resource provision, who are both exciting and stable. This is rare. Most men are calibrated to one end of the spectrum or the other. They're either exciting but unstable, or stable but boring. They wonder why women seem attracted initially but lose interest over time, exciting but unstable, or why they become just friends with women they're attracted to, stable but boring. The secret is integration, but that's a topic for another video. For now, understand that the female maybe often has a hormonal component that has nothing to do with you personally. Her evaluation system literally changes across the month. Your job is not to take individual responses too seriously, but to present yourself in a way that passes both sets of filters. The social proof dimension. There's one more biological factor we need to discuss before moving to tactical responses: social proof. For evolutionary reasons, that should be obvious. Women are significantly influenced by other women's evaluations of men. If other women find you attractive, that's a powerful signal that you have value. If other women reject you, that's equally powerful information. This isn't superficial or unfair, it's efficient information processing. Rather than conducting her own complete evaluation from scratch, she can leverage the evaluations already conducted by other women in her social environment. Maybe is often a waiting period while she collects social proof data. She's observing how other women respond to you. She's asking friends for opinions. She's checking your social media for signals of female attention. She's gathering information from sources other than direct observation. This is why your overall social presentation matters enormously. It's not just about your interaction with her, it's about the ecosystem of signals that surrounds you. Men who understand this curate their social environments carefully. They maintain friendships with attractive women. They're seen in social contexts with female attention. They let social proof do the heavy lifting rather than trying to convince individual women through direct interaction alone. Men who don't understand this operate in isolation. They interact with each woman as if she exists in a vacuum. They don't recognize that her evaluation is influenced by dozens of data points they're not even aware of. When she says maybe, she may be waiting for social proof data to arrive. She may be waiting to see how her friends respond to you. She may be waiting to observe you in group contexts rather than one-on-one. Your job is to ensure that when that data arrives, it confirms high value rather than undermining it. Tactical response framework. Now let's get practical. You've encountered a maybe. Based on the signal clusters from part 1, you've identified which type you're dealing with. How do you respond? Response to the interested maybe. The key principle here is investment matching with slight withdrawal. She's interested but testing. Your goal is to pass the test by demonstrating that your interest is real but not desperate, that you have options, that you're choosing her rather than clinging to her. Tactically, this means match her response latency. If she takes 2 hours to respond, you take 2 to 3 hours. Never respond significantly faster than she does. Never double text. Never show more investment than she's showing. Reduce effort over time rather than increasing it. Early in the interaction, you might send longer messages, suggest specific plans, show initiative. As she gives maybes, you progressively pull back. Shorter messages, less specific plans, more open-ended. Let me know when you figure out your schedule, rather than, how about Tuesday at 7? Create soft scarcity. You become less available. Not in a dramatic game-playing way, just in a natural way. You're busy. You have things going on. Your life doesn't pause while she decides. The interested maybe typically resolves within 1 to 2 weeks. Either she steps forward and commits to plans, or she fades out. If it goes longer than 2 weeks without concrete progression, assume it has converted to a polite rejection maybe and respond accordingly. Response to the polite rejection maybe. The key principle here is immediate, graceful exit. This is not a situation you can salvage through persistence. She has made her decision. The non-committal language is kindness, not uncertainty. Tactically, this means one acknowledgement, then silence. Something brief and ego-neutral. No worries, take care, or got it. Good luck with everything. Nothing that invites further conversation. Nothing that leaves a door open. No follow-up. Ever. Do not check in weeks later to see if anything has changed. Do not like her social media posts hoping she'll notice. Do not engineer accidental encounters. Move immediately to other options. The emotional energy you're spending on processing this rejection is energy you're not spending on pursuing actual opportunities. The only exception to this rule is if she reaches out to you first, weeks or months later, with explicit interest. Then you reevaluate, but you never chase a polite rejection. Response to the strategic maybe. The key principle here is frame stability. She's actively testing you. Your job is to pass the tests without appearing to try, to maintain consistent behavior regardless of her oscillation. Tactically, this means do not react to her withdrawal. When she pulls back, you don't pursue harder. You don't demand explanations. You simply continue your life at the same pace you were before. Do not react excessively to her engagement. When she suddenly becomes warm and attentive, you don't escalate dramatically. You don't act like you've won something. You accept it smoothly and continue. Maintain outcome independence. The test she's running is specifically designed to determine whether your emotional stability depends on her validation. If it does, you fail. If it doesn't, you pass. The strategic maybe can continue longer than the interested maybe, sometimes several weeks. But it should still show progression. Each test you pass should open more access. If you're passing tests but not seeing progression, something else is blocking advancement. Boyfriend, other priorities, etc. And you should pull back. We're approaching the most critical section. Part 3 covers advanced pattern recognition, the specific language structures that reveal hidden intent, and the ultimate framework for never misreading a maybe again. But I have to ask you something first. Are you actually applying this? Or are you just consuming information? There's a difference between knowing and doing, between understanding and implementing. Most men watch content like this and nod along, feeling like they're improving. Then they encounter a real situation and fall back into the same patterns. Break the cycle. Watch this again. Take notes. When you encounter your next maybe, consciously identify which category it falls into. Consciously choose your response based on the frameworks I've taught. Then come back and let me know in the comments what happened. Your feedback shapes future content. Your questions reveal what needs deeper explanation. Your engagement tells the algorithm to show this to more men who need it. Subscribe if you haven't. Ring the notification bell. Part 3 drops soon. We're unlocking something here. Don't stop halfway. Advanced pattern recognition, the language of hidden intent. Welcome back for the final section. If you've made it this far, you're already ahead of most men. You understand the biology. You recognize the signal clusters. You have tactical frameworks for response. Now we're going to refine your pattern recognition to the point where misreading becomes almost impossible, where you can decode maybes in real time with high accuracy, where the confusion that plagues most men simply doesn't exist for you anymore. Let's talk about linguistic markers. Specific words and phrase structures reliably indicate underlying intent, even when surface meaning is ambiguous. These markers operate like tells in poker, unconscious revelations of true position. Marker 1. Specificity gradient. Pay attention to how specific her language is. High specificity indicates genuine engagement. Low specificity indicates polite deflection. Compare these two responses to, "Want to grab coffee this weekend?" Response: A. Maybe. I'm not sure what my schedule looks like yet. Response B. Maybe. I have a work thing Saturday morning, but I might be free Sunday afternoon. Let me check. Both contain maybe. But response A is low specificity deflection. She's not engaging with the logistics because she's not actually considering the logistics. The schedule is an excuse, not a real factor. Response B is high specificity engagement. She's running through real calendar items. She's offering alternative time frames. She's working to make it happen. This gradient applies to all non-committal responses. The more specific details she provides, even when declining, the more genuine interest underlies the response. I can't this week equals low specificity, low interest. I can't Tuesday because of my sister's thing, and Wednesday I have that deadline. High specificity, high interest. Train yourself to notice this automatically. Marker 2. Question generation. Does she generate questions or only answer yours? Interested women ask questions. They want to know more. They're running their evaluation process, which requires data collection. Uninterested women answer, but don't ask. They're being polite, not engaged. If you review your text exchanges and find that you're generating 90% of the questions, that's a clear signal that the maybe means no. She's not gathering information about you because she's not evaluating you as a serious option. This is one of the most reliable signals and one of the most ignored. Men get so focused on how she's responding that they don't notice whether she's initiating. Marker 3. Future projection. Does she reference future interactions voluntarily? An interested woman who's giving a strategic or interested maybe will often drop references to future possibilities. We should check out that place sometime. Have you seen that movie? We should watch it. When things calm down, we need to... These future projections indicate that she's mentally placing you in her future. She's visualizing continued interaction. This happens naturally when interest is present. A woman giving a polite rejection maybe will not future project. She's mentally closing the loop, not extending it. She might respond positively to your future projections. Yeah, that sounds fun, but she won't generate her own. If you're the only one generating future projection language, assume polite rejection. Marker 4. Emotional vocabulary. How much emotional language does she use when communicating with you? Engaged women use more emotional words. They express feelings. They use exclamation points. Yes, this matters. They include emotionally toned language that creates connection. Disengaged women use neutral, transactional language. Their responses are emotionally flat, functional, but lifeless. This is hard to describe, but easy to feel. Read your exchanges out loud. If her side sounds like it could be written by a customer service representative, that's not good. If it sounds like someone who's actually enjoying the interaction, that's positive. The response latency matrix. Let me give you a precise framework for interpreting response timing. This is one of the most powerful diagnostic tools available, and it's completely objective. No interpretation required, just measurement. Here's the matrix. Consistent, fast responses under 30 minutes. Strong interest. Proceed with confidence. Consistent moderate responses, 1 to 3 hours. Interest with measured pacing. She's deliberately not appearing too eager. Match her pace. Consistent slow responses, 4+ hours to next day. Low interest. Polite engagement. This is usually a polite rejection, maybe. Consider exiting. Variable response latency, fast sometimes, slow others. Genuine uncertainty, strategic testing, or external factors, actually busy. Look to other signals for clarification. Degrading response latency, starting fast, becoming slower over time. This is the fade gradient I mentioned in part 1. Interest is declining. Exit before it reaches full rejection. Improving response latency, starting slow, becoming faster. This is rare but very positive. Something you did increased her interest. Try to identify what and continue. Now here's the key nuance. You must look at her baseline, not absolute times. A woman with a demanding job might genuinely take 6+ hours to respond to anyone. That's her baseline. If she starts responding to you in 2 hours, that's actually extremely fast for her. A woman who's constantly on her phone might have a baseline of 15-minute responses. If she suddenly starts taking 2 hours with you, that's actually slow for her. You need data points to establish baseline. The first few exchanges establish her normal pattern. Deviations from that pattern are the signal. The ultimate framework, the interest escalation test. I'm going to give you the single most reliable test for decoding any female maybe. It's simple. It's almost always accurate. And it cuts through all the ambiguity. It's called the interest escalation test. Here's how it works. When you encounter a maybe, propose a slight escalation of investment and observe whether she matches it or deflects it. Example, you've been texting. You suggest a phone call. Does she accept or does she deflect back to texting? Example, you've had one coffee date. You suggest dinner, higher investment. Does she accept or does she counter-offer with another low-investment hangout? Example, you've been on a few dates. You suggest meeting her friends. Does she accept or does she avoid integrating you into her social world? Each escalation is a test. Each acceptance indicates genuine interest. Each deflection indicates polite rejection or stalled interest. The key is proportional escalation. You're not going from first text to come to my place tonight. You're incrementally increasing investment and observing whether she matches. If she matches consistently, she's interested. Proceed. If she matches sometimes and deflects sometimes, she's in strategic maybe territory. Maintain frame. Continue testing. If she deflects consistently, she's in polite rejection territory. The words may say maybe, but the behavioral pattern says no. This test collapses all the ambiguity into clear behavioral evidence. It doesn't matter what she says. It matters whether she matches your escalation. The mindset shift. Before we close, let me address something critical. Everything I've taught you operates from one foundational principle, outcome independence. If you're clinging to a specific woman's approval, if your emotional well-being depends on converting her maybe to a yes, you've already lost. Not just with her, but with everyone. The energy of neediness transmits clearly, no matter how well you hide it verbally. She can feel it. Her nervous system registers it, and it disqualifies you immediately. All of these tactical frameworks only work when deployed from a position of genuine abundance, when you actually have options, when you actually don't need her specifically. If you don't have options right now, your first priority isn't tactical mastery. It's building an ecosystem of opportunity. More social circles, more dating app optimization, more cold approach practice, more sources of female attention. The tactics are force multipliers, but they multiply nothing if you're operating from zero. Build abundance, then apply tactics, not the other way around. Conclusion and ultimatum. Let's bring this home. You now have what most men will never have: a complete framework for decoding female non-committal responses. You understand the biology. You recognize the signal clusters. You can identify linguistic markers. You have response protocols for every situation. And you have the ultimate test for cutting through ambiguity. But knowledge is worthless without action. The men who succeed are the men who apply, who practice, who fail and adjust, who build the pattern recognition through actual real-world experience, not passive consumption. Tomorrow, you'll encounter a maybe. Next week, you'll get a non-committal response. Next month, you'll be testing your read of a situation. When that happens, you have a choice. Option 1. Fall back into old patterns. Take her words at face value. Wait anxiously, push ineffectively. Wonder why dating feels like a rigged game. Option 2. Apply what you learned here. Read the signal cluster. Identify the category. Execute the appropriate response. Observe the results. Calibrate and improve. The information is the same. The outcomes are radically different. Which option will you choose? Here's my challenge to you. Hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling me the most recent maybe you encountered and what you think it meant based on these frameworks. I read the comments, I respond, I learn what you need more clarity on. Share this with one man you know who's struggling with dating, someone who takes things too personally, someone who can't read signals, someone who stays too long in situations that aren't working. The more men who understand this, the less collective suffering there is. The fewer men waiting for maybes that mean no. The fewer men pushing past polite rejections into uncomfortable territory. The fewer men confused and bitter because they never learned to speak this language. You have the knowledge now. Use it. I'll see you in the next one.